Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. It's wonderful to see so many of you here with us today. Just to give you a very brief introduction, we are here in the Muse Collection stand. The Muse Collection is a private collection of photographic archives. We are lucky enough to have these five great photographers in our collection: Andre Didienne, Fred McDarrah, Deborah Turbeville, Rosalind Fox-Solomon, and Alfred Wertheimer. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the AIPAD for the fair. We are incredibly lucky to be programming partners for the fair, and it has been a real pleasure and honor. And a big thank you also to Richard Gorsberg, who's advising the collection and helping us with our mission every day. He's helped us acquire the work of Deborah Turbeville and Rosalind Fox-Solomon, and we hope to carry on with this mission for many years to come. So thank you very much, Richard. I'm now going to leave the word to Arnika. She's going to introduce this wonderful talk, but I very much hope that you'll have the time after the talk to come and see the show. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you would like to come and see the archive. It would be a pleasure for us to organize a tour. And again, thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and seeing us. Thank you. Amika?
Hello. I would like to say that AIPAD brings together prominent curators, artists, collectors, and writers to discuss thought-provoking ideas, new trends, and unique processes involved in the medium of photography. AIPAD Talks start conversations that lead to understanding, inspiration, and action. I'm Arnika Dawkins, chair of AIPAD Talks, and I want to welcome you to today's talk in this beautiful booth of the Muse Collection. Inside Out, a conversation with Adger Cowans and curator and author Halima Taha. In this talk explores the impact of the sum of Adger Cowans' experiences as a fine art, movie, still photographer, painter, and musician on his aesthetic. I lost my space, excuse me. On his aesthetic view about the relationship between life and art. Adger Cowans began studying music at the age of 9. His talents on the trumpet led him to a full scholarship at Capital University, but by that time, photography had become an engrossing interest of his. He studied with Clarence H. White, Jr., and drew inspiration from photographers like Ansel Adams, Gene Smith, Alfred Stieglitz, Edward Weston, and Paul Strand. Cowan studied at the School of Motion Picture Art and School of Visual Arts in New York City, becoming the first African-American film and still photographer in Hollywood. Cowans employed his camera on over 30 Hollywood sets, alongside directors like Francis Ford Coppola, Sidney Lamont, Spike Lee, and many others. Can you believe in 1958, Cowans joined Gordon Parks at Life magazine. As a mentor, Parks encouraged him to use his camera against racism and violence against Black people. While living in New York City during the 1960s, Cowans became the founding member of Kumonge Workshop, a civil rights art collective that included photography icon Roy D. Carava as the original founder and other renowned Black artists. Now an icon himself in the world of photography and fine art, Cowans' photographs and paintings have been shown and collected by the African American Historical and Cultural Museum in Washington, D.C., the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Whitney, the Museum of Modern Art, the Studio Museum of Harlem, to name just a few. Halima Taha is an art professional whose curatorial art advisory, gallery, appraisal, strategic planning, writing, and management services develop corporate, not-for-profit academic development, develop corporate, not-for-profit academic and civic programs and audiences. She's best known for her groundbreaking bestseller, Collecting African American Art, works on paper and canvas. The first book to validate collecting fine art, printmaking, and photography by African Americans and as viable asset and commodities in the market. Her work has been a catalyst for significant museums to pursue collections of African American art for exhibitions within the last 25 years. She is an art advocate committed to nurturing the development, documentation, and acquisition of Black visual culture as a professional speaker and arts writer. Please join me in welcoming them both.
Good afternoon. It is always a pleasure for me to see new and familiar faces together in pursuit of increasing our knowledge about ourselves and the world in which we live in through photographs. We see pictures, we feel pictures, and many of you here make them. And so we are thankful for that. What I would like to do before we begin is to really start out with a silent visual meditation. There are a lot of images of Adgers that I wanted to share. We may not have a chance to speak about all of them, but I wanted to take this opportunity for you to see the range of work, and then we will begin to have this wonderful conversation with one another.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Fine.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That's the end of the show.
That's it. Thanks for coming. So, one of the reasons why I thought it was particularly important to talk to Adger from the inside out is because of the sum of his experiences, not only as a human being, but as a photographer, as a painter, as a filmmaker, as a son, a brother, a father, a mentor, and many other roles that he has had in his life and continues. And I think sometimes when we think about artists working in any medium, we often forget that the sum of their experiences directly shapes how they see and experience the world. Sometimes we get just lost with the physical object. But at the same time, the physical object itself, in relation to Adger, is more than just what he sees and his technical abilities. I wanted us to get deeper into knowing more about you and your work. So you have said that you take a picture through your heart, not your eyes. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I think that we all feel with the heart. We make decisions based on what we see, but what we see, you know, it affects the heart. And I think that when you feel, you know, I feel a photograph. I don't take a photograph, I feel it. Because if it hits the heart, then that's what it's about. But it's through the eyes, it comes through the eyes. But the eyes don't feel, the eyes see. It's the heart that feels.
So that seems to allow you, I think, to embrace a series of inter- and intrapersonal relationships that celebrate love, culture, and beauty within the vibrancy of life. Would that be?
Yeah, well, I think that all artists deal with feeling. You know, whether you're a painter, a dancer, or whatever, you all deal with the heart, the feeling. If you go to a theater and you see a movie, you know, and you walk out of the movie, what do you say? Oh, that was a great movie. I said, and you tell everybody. But it's coming from what you feel, not what you see. See, a woman gets up in the morning and says, oh, you make these decisions all the time. Well, what am I going to wear? I'll wear this, I'll wear that. You make these decisions, but it's always with how you feel about it, you know. So I think that everything is like, when you meet somebody for the first time and you shake their hand, you know whether you have a feeling about them or not. That feeling is there. It's always there, you see. And I think that artists, when they're really tuned into their spirit, that inner part, that's what they use to take a picture or do anything.
What I'd like to do is to go to one of your earliest photographs that you took when you were a teenager. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, and also when you held your first camera.
Well, I've held my first camera when I was about 9 years old. You know, I took a picture of my mother licking an ice cream carton.
Okay.
And she said, what are you doing? I said, oh, I got a picture. But I wasn't really thinking about being a photographer. I really wasn't. I was more interested in the music. And my life was filled with music. And that's what I thought about most of the time. But I took this picture. My first camera was a Rolleicord, which I got by signing my father's name, because his name is the same as mine. His is Adger Cowans, and I'm Adger Cowans. So I went downtown, and this is, you know, right after the Second World War, where they came out with this concept that you can buy something on time. All you do is sign. So I signed his name, which is my name, Adger W. Cowans. So when I got home, you know, and 3 days later, all this equipment came. He had a fit. Oh, and he went nuts, you know. And my mother said, don't kill him, that's your only son. You know? So anyway, I started walking around taking pictures. And I was in the East Market down where my grandmother lived, and I saw these 4 little kids. They were standing there, and the balloon man was selling balloons on the corner. In the old days, they would come through the neighborhood. And they were standing there looking at him with, you know, oh, they didn't have any money. So I bought four balloons and gave it to them. And they were so happy, I took a picture of them. And somebody said, oh, man, these took pictures of these poor kids, and they're black, and what are you doing? And, you know, why don't you take something, you know, more of this or more of that? And the more I looked at the photograph and the more people talked about it, I realized it wasn't about the kids at all. It was about the joy that they felt in having these balloons. And that's what I had captured. I wasn't aware at that time that that's what I captured. it was, you know, I was feeling these kids. So years later, when I showed this photograph, people talked about, you know, asked me why I did that picture. I don't know why I felt it. That's all I can say. And they were so happy, these kids, and I was happy that I had bought them the balloons. It was a feel-good situation for both sides. This is this is my son and my niece and nephew. They're all 50 and 60 years old now. but they were standing there, and she was writing. They were writing on the window and everything, you know. And I just thought it was a great shot. My uncle had a cleaning pressing business, so the fog on the window is where they were writing. So, and that was, you know, just a picture of kids. I liked kids and the interaction and the innocence of kids. You know, there's a different feeling with children. You don't learn to be, you know, you learn to be a racist, you know, or you learn whatever you learn, you know, you learn. But as a child, most children are very innocent. They deal with each other on feeling. Oh, I got in trouble with this one. Somebody said, "What are you trying to say about the Lord?" I said, "I'm not trying to say anything about the Lord. This is a picture." But I thought about it. Well, yeah, it's, you know, cleaning, you know, washing your spirit, washing your soul clean, you know. God's lighthouse. I mean, I used to see these kind of pictures when I was a kid all the time. Pictures of Jesus in church, you know, with the arms outstretched. And I always wondered, you know, who is Jesus and who is God and what is religion? You know, as a child, these things concerned me. Well, I was a big daydreamer. My teacher called my mother one time and said, "Oh, you have to come and talk about Adger in school." And so my mother came to school, and Miss Tyree said, "He's a very good student. He remembers things when I call him, but he's always daydreaming. Always, he's looking out the window, he's looking at it, you know, drawing something." It's just that I heard everything, but all these things that were going outside, you know. As a child, I didn't want to be a human being. I'll start there. I wanted to be air or sunshine or rain, because human beings, they change their mind, they're mean, they stink, you know. All these things that human beings are, that I thought I didn't want to be one of those. I wanted to be something that was, you couldn't define. I wanted to be invisible. That's what I really wanted. Then I could live my life. I felt that if I was invisible, I could get all kinds of things. Nobody would see me. So the camera kind of became that for me. It wasn't that I was hiding behind the camera. It was that the camera allowed me to express something that I couldn't talk about. And that was the great thing for me about photography. People look at it and they have their idea about it, and they talk about it, about what they feel. You know, if there's something that they feel that I did that I resonate with, then I've won. That's the way I see it. I've won because I've captured them, you see. And so they have this experience, not because of me, but because of them. They have a visual experience. Every human being in their life has a physical and spiritual relationship with everything around them. So that was the idea, to show a photograph to somebody and listen to what they said. It was a way for me to have sort of a way into their mind or into their head, or how they thought by what they said. Like, well, I don't like it. I don't. It looks like this. It looks like that. That's terrible. Whatever they said, or so I love that one. Then I knew that I hit that chord, and I wanted to stay on that for the rest of my life. I felt that's how I could connect with people without being there. I wanted to be a wallflower. This is one of those shots I waited for, you know. I saw these kids coming down the street, and I thought I could see the long shadows, but they were to the right of me, and I said, "Oh, man," I said, "I hope they keep coming down the street." You know, sometimes you wait, and all of a sudden they turned the corner. But I could see the long shadows, and I had my new little Leica, and I waited until they got right there, and then I said, that's the shot. That's the shot. And originally I had cut the man and turned into the building. I saw he's in, but then I realized that that was all part of the composition. Composition framing is very, very important. How you see something and how you frame it is very important, because you're taking a slice of something. So you have to be very conscious of everything in that frame, every corner, all of it, because it all has meaning. But you have to, you know, see it. And then to see it in an instance, then you're rehearsing all the time with I did with my camera and my eyes all the time. I used to sleep with my camera when I was little, because I thought if I woke up fast enough, I could get my dreams. And I was like, no, you laugh. I was serious as a heart attack. I would wait, and sometimes between that period where you're dreaming and you're awake, that period, where you kind of remember and you don't remember, I waited every night. I waited for that period. I said, okay, but then it was gone. And but going through life like I have, I began to see that I could possibly get some of the things in my dreams. I think that's what led me to taking pictures of water.
Yeah, that makes sense. Help. Help. It's frozen.
Well, I like shadows. I think in the shadows there's a lot in terms of life and in terms of photographs. Not everything is in the bright daylight, and you have to have light to take pictures. You also have to have dark. You need a balance of both of those. And I find that there's a lot of information in photography, in the shadows, and also in life. You don't always know everything about a person. You meet them and they're big or they're known, etc. And I found that out in working on movies. That's somebody that I thought was a certain kind of way, and then you work with that person and find out who they really are. They're not just the person that reflect on the screen. People say, oh, he's so wonderful, she's so this, and then you work with them and you find they're a prick. It's just, yeah, they're people. Everybody is a person. We all, you can't get away from it. Everybody in this room bleeds blood. You see? Everybody in this room sweats. Everybody in this room goes to the bathroom. Everybody in this room falls in love or not in love or out of love. We are all one. There's only one blood on the planet. There's no such thing as, the red race and the black race. There's only the race of human beings. The division by the powers that be is to keep us apart so that they can rule over our minds and our whatever it is, the government, religion, politics, education. All those are to keep you in a certain alignment with the society. They keep track of you, et cetera. And you have your children, you get married, you have a job, and you get a gold watch after 50 years. Well, not anymore. They fire you at 25. But, all of these things that they keep us apart are the things that we have to work on as human beings and coming together. If you're by yourself for a long time, you get lonely. You don't think you get lonely. You say, oh, I'm okay, I'm good. But then you meet somebody on the street, and then you run your mouth. What'd you do? Oh, I was talking, and they say, oh, yeah, man, I haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, let's have a drink. You need that interaction. And I think photography, being that it's a photographic medium, you can have that with a photograph. You can have that feeling with a photograph. And I think that's important. That's my feeling about photographs. I mean, I'm not a conceptualist. I don't think that I'm going to go out and build on an idea of something like I'm going to photograph rocks or trees, or because to me, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I think that the reality of life that you see every day going in front is where it's at. And I learned that from Gordon, you know. I also learned from Gordon to take negative energy and turn it into positive power or positive images, because he dealt with the most insidious kind of racism you could think of. We think we have racism now, okay. But it's not like it was in the 20s and 30s and 40s, where they hang people right in front of you or shoot people. You know, they're doing it now again today. It's coming back around. You see, there's no respect anymore. But I think that you have to, I don't know, as an artist, you have to give your heart to it. And when you give your heart to it or your spirit to it, it comes out and other people see it and they vibe with it. Then something begins to happen. There's a dialogue with another spirit, with another human being, and that dialogue is very important in all levels.
I'm curious, how do you think Black culture cultivates a passion for humanity and celebration?
Well, I think that Black people, people of color, because of melanin, have a sort of, there's an activity with melanin. They've proven that the melanin is active, you know, and it's active in people of color more than people who don't have color. Not to say that they can't do the same thing. It is the melanin that activates, you know, the great basketball players jumping up and turning around backwards and putting it, the great football players catching the ball, the great jazz and rhythm and blues and the blues singers. All that has to do with a kind of rhythm, a kind of pattern of movement. And I think that has always been with Black people since the beginning. I think it comes from Africa. Everybody comes from Africa, folks. Everybody. Africa, that's where life started, you know. Everybody came from there. There's no such thing as a pure white race or a pure Black. There's no pure anything. It's all been mixed up.
It's pure human.
Pure human. Yeah, you're a pure human being.
Well,
you know?
I'm in terms of culture, and in light of what you're talking about. I mean, there is one race, the human race, and there are many nations and tribes, so we may know one another, and that makes it so interesting because we're not all the same, and we get the chance to come together and discover the similarities, but also appreciate and respect the differences.
Yes.
So, because of the way that you were raised. And you were, raised by two parents who not only loved and cherished you, but also taught you that to not only love yourself, but that the world was literally your oyster. You didn't grow up feeling limited in your intellectual, spiritual, or social capacity in any way.
No.
And that's particularly interesting considering that you were born at the height of like the second term of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and when he was inspiring people to remain courageous and strong and determined, to survive during tough times, and so the human spirit of determination of being was in their consciousness, and they have this precious child that they're going to make sure has a better future, as all parents do. But they also, were embracing, the idea of those, during World War II, of the four freedoms: freedom of religion, freedom, from worship or want, or freedom of speech, and freedom from fear. Those are some powerful ideas, if you think about it, within the first 10 years of your life, and the things that you're conscious of. Within the first 10 years, you're hearing about someone like, oh my gosh,
Joe Louis.
Joe Louis, he went, what did he win? 48 out of 51 bouts, or
right.
or
it was all on the radio.
Or
then.
Jesse Owens,
Jesse Owens,
in Berlin, winning, the track, and then the big, hit of the time of Duke Ellington, Caravan, and And I think Toscanini was at the Carnegie Hall, and that was a big deal. I mean, and then there's all the rise of fascism that's going on all over the world. I mean, as a child, you absorb a lot of this stuff, paralleling these wonderful values, these very humanistic values, but then also being entrenched in an Afrocentric community and culture. So that's why I was curious about how you felt that black culture cultivates, this kind of passion for humanity, truly living the golden mean, considering the history, all of the diasporic histories and the impact of colonization worldwide. What are your thoughts and your feelings? Because that has kept you navigating everything up through the civil rights movement, up through today, being at a point in your career where photography was opening up, blossoming in terms of being considered a form of fine art. You were there with it. You were studying with the people before. I mean, there's 238, I think, BFA and MFA photography programs. You were the second African American and one of the few photography BFAs. Chuck Stewart was the first.
Right.
And so now, and you're visiting W. Gene Smith's, having a chance to go to his darkroom and look at his prints. Could you, so I'm talking about your experience going into a totally Eurocentric arena, but also being in the world.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think about any of that.
Of course not. I'm asking you to reflect upon it.
You know.
You were in it.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but I didn't think about racism or anything. I grew up in a very large family with my grandmother living down the street, my aunt living next door. The school I went to was 2 blocks down there, the grade school. So I lived in this bubble, actually a bubble of protection, because I had all this family around me. In fact, I wanted to get away from it. I was sick and tired. Every time I did something in school, my grandmother would call my aunt and say, he did this and he did that. And by the time I get home, my mother said, your grandmother called your aunt and told her so. And you get a beating, I had no space. That's the way I felt. I couldn't do what I wanted to do because everybody was looking in on everything I did, my whole family, So at 15, I wanted to go leave. I was pack my little bag. I'm getting out of here. I'm a man. Shoot, I'm out in the world. And then I found that the world was not like what I had been taught. To treat people like you want to be treated. Every human being is a human being. All these things that I had been taught. I went to church. I grew up in the Baptist church, and I thought that was great because, preacher would be preaching, people would be shouting, and I just loved it. It was like theater to me, shouting and screaming, and I was in it. I mean, my mother would be rocking back and forth saying Jesus and Jesus, and Miss Golden behind me, she would throw her Bible up in the air, and Mrs. Lawson would jump up out of her seat. Now, this is an old lady. I'm telling you, no, she was an old lady. And the spirit would hit her. She would throw her Bible up in the air, throw her glasses off, and jump up and run around the church like a horse. At a gallop, I'm telling you, no. And everybody be going, oh my God, and she's running, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And the women who take care of people that get out like that, they would grab her, and wipe her down and fan her and everything. So, I mean, that's what I saw every Sunday. We were in church like, Sunday school, BYPU, all these, we were there all day long. And my father, he taught the young adult class, and I could hear him upstairs, so, and Jesus, and the Lord, and then we go upstairs for the service, and the preacher say, Brother Cowans was preaching this morning. It was that kind of thing. It was very. I didn't think of it as being closed. It's just the way I grew up. So I didn't have any fear about being in the world. I used to travel around with my grandfather. We would get in the car, and he had a big Buick, and we would travel down to Cleveland to see my uncle down there. And sometimes we stop by the side of the road, and a couple times we stopped, and the white man came and said, "You niggers get off my land." So we're just having a picnic. He said, "This is my land," and he had a gun, you know. And my grandfather, you know, and my grandmother said, "George watching you still." And we gathered all the stuff up, and put it in the car, and went on. That was the extent of direct racism I had growing up. I had other things that happened to me, but I had too many other happy things in my life, and my parents keeping me away from a lot of that stuff. So we lived our life, so we didn't think about racism. We lived our lives, you know, within this system. And it wasn't until I left home that I really found out that I had been, I don't know, sort of imbued with this sense of humanity, that all people are human beings, no matter what they do, even the good ones. God made everything, or the Creator made everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So what right do I have as a human being to judge anybody? So I leave people alone, you know, whether they're good or bad. I have no judgment. If it's real bad, I just tell the Lord, "You see he's messing with you. I mean, you better take care of this for me," because I believe that what you put out, you know, what you put out of you, your spirit that comes from the Creator comes back to you. I see it happening in photography. When people talk about my work, that comes back to me. It comes back to how I feel.
Do you want to say anything about this particular
Oh,
piece?
this is Elaine Shelton. She had made a hat. She made hats, and I wanted to do a different shot of her. So the street sweeper just gone by, and the street was wet, and I thought it was a great tactile kind of thing. One of my early shots on the South Ferry of these kids looking at New York, you know, from afar. And I just liked that, you know, this was in New York to me with kids in the street, you know, they're all hanging out together, they're all colors. I just love the shot. Icarus.
Icarus.
Now that was one of those shots, once in a lifetime kind of picture. And I had just bought a 21 millimeter lens, and I was at the beach, and I was laying down like that, you know, just looking at the sky, and I saw this thing fall across me. I said, "Whoa!" I looked around, they were throwing this kid up in a blanket, little girl. So I ran, and I got right to the edge of the blanket, and I shot with the wide-angle lens. So she's against the sky, so there's no depth in the sky, so, you know, it just looks flat, but it looks like it goes on forever.
And her wings melted.
Yeah, well, the real story, Greek myth,
Yes.
which comes out of Africa, really, the story of Icarus, drawing the sun up in the morning. His father, the god, I forget it. Anyway, he was the one, yes, that brought the sun up in the morning. So he had overslept, and his son said, "Oh, let me do Papa sleep, but he got too close to the sun, and his wings melted. He didn't know they were made of wax. So that's the story. So I just call that Icarus.
He was warned. How many of us who have children have warned them?
Right.
And if they had wings, they would have melted.
Reflections. I love reflections. This is a reflection of a friend of mine, and I tried to get a feeling tone in the reflection of who she actually was as a human being, rather than trying to do a direct portrait of her. So there's sort of ghostly feeling there, but it's on a reflection on a window that was rain stained. The wind, you know, it had dried. So it was a reflection of her behind that. Balance in space. Two kids. He's looking for the train, and she's playing. I mean, you know, it's just, there it is. The two guys are talking across. There it is. You know, I couldn't, if I had placed them myself, I couldn't have placed them better than that. It was just a natural, you know, that's why I like things that happen naturally in life in front of me rather than trying to structure. Oh, man. I love this picture. I love the picture because of the cat. That's what it was about. I was taking the picture. I was saying, oh, that's a beautiful balance, and get ready to take it. And the cat goes. and he drew me away from what I was doing for that moment, and I realized that it was about the cat. The form and the shape is great, but it's called the cat.
This is a rare photograph.
Yeah, this is Roy DiCaravo on 125th Street back in the day. And that's his bicycle leaning up against the wall there. And he would ride with a camera, and he had a bungee cord around it. And he would whip it out. And he would ride around and take pictures. You know, he wasn't walking. Roy rode a lot on his bike, and that's how he shot a lot of pictures. He'd stop and shoot something.
So we're going to look at some of your forms.
Nudes. I love nudes because of the form. This picture I shot of my wife in 1958 when she said, "You're not taking any naked pictures of me and putting them in Playboy." I said, I know. I said, it's just a beautiful. She said, "You're not taking any naked pictures of me." I said, "It's not a naked." I said, "You don't see what I see." So she finally submitted, and I took the picture. Years later, the Metropolitan Museum had their first show of what they call artistic photography. And I was there. I think Gordon was the only other black person in the show. Penn, Avedon, Rawlings, they were all there. You know, it was a big deal because they finally decided that photography was an art, and they had the show. So I'm standing there, you know, and people complimenting me on the photograph. And then it got really big people, 3 or 4 people. So that's a great photograph. And my wife was standing there. She said, "You know, that's me." I said, "I'm over." And she was, "Oh, yeah." It was really funny. This is another nude. I like shooting the figure because I want them to be sensual but not sexual. You know, because the body is sensual. The body is beautiful. You know, everybody's body, men, women, children, they all have beautiful forms. And you can tell if you're taking care of your body, your form will show it. You see, if you're eating the right thing, your body will if you're thinking the right thing, your body will show it. You know, if you're not taking care of your body, you see it in a minute. You see people like totally out of shape because they don't understand that this body is only given to you for this moment. You don't own anything. You come in here with nothing and you leave with nothing. Supposedly nothing, but what you come in here is you come with spirit and you leave with spirit, actually. Yeah. Is what you do. You see, you may not see it, but you come in and you go out with spirit. But you don't know what it is. You don't own it. You can't make it. You know, you can't make an ocean. You know, you can't make another person. You know, that's the Creator is making all this stuff for you to enjoy, for you to experience, for you to be in love with the world and the universe and the trees and the flowers. All that helps your mind and your body. You know, and when you're connected with that, I think you can really, through photography, you can really experience something by being able to connect spiritually with it. Animals. Why is it that animals are afraid of people? Because people are always messing with them. But my experience with animals and being out in nature, if you're quiet and you're not aggressive, animals feel your energy. Cats are really great. Cats are really, you can tell, if you have a cat and somebody comes out, you can tell who that person is. The cat will tell you, like, yeah, or they'll run over and lick you. Or, you know, we don't pay attention to these little things that have to do with making our life beautiful and wonderful. Rain. He says, "Oh, it's raining today." We need the rain. But the water photographs go to
They're coming. They're coming. They're
Okay.
coming. I can attest that. 2 weeks ago, I was in Oujda, Morocco, and I was walking uphill from the bottom of the waterfall. And the night before, I had a dream that a monkey had, you know, jumped on my back. And I was like, I don't know what that's about. But then I just left it. And then as I was walking up, lo and behold, out of nowhere, a monkey came and jumped on my shoulders. And I was calm, and the monkey was calm, and we were friends.
Energy.
It was
it's
just,
energy.
so these things happen.
It's your energy. It's what you're radiating. You know,
This is
what you're
much-
thinking, what you're being. It's all comes out, and it goes out. You got 15 feet of energy around you. We don't talk about that. People don't talk about that. We're educating human beings, you know, and you use it every day, but you don't think about it. You know, you walk down the street and you bump into somebody. Somebody else will say, "Good morning, how are you?" And somebody else you walk by. But it's that feeling, you know. There could be a bum there, and you look at it. Some bums you say, "Oh," another bum you pass by. It's always about what you are radiating from your body, and if you're centered and you're thinking positive, you see, about life and about yourself. You have to love yourself. A lot of people don't love themselves. You know, that energy circulates in the whole world. What do you think music is about? The music goes out into the whole world. The sound carries into the whole world. Your voice carries into all of these. They're little subtle things, but we miss them. And when we miss them, we don't understand what it is that what we're doing. We're confused. Like the world, I think, right now, there's a lot of confusion. Has to do with politics. It has to do with what they're putting out, the news media, all that. People react to those things, you know. And right now, everybody's going, yippee. Yippee. Yay. You know? And some people are saying, oh, no, that's not it. No. You know, you got two sides. You always have two sides. You have a man and woman. You got two sides, two different points of view. I think that's okay. This idea of men and women fighting back and forth is stupid. You know, women are different, period, than men. And that's okay. Men are men and women are women.
It's great.
Come on, it's great.
It's great.
Yeah, why do you want men to be men to be women, and women to be men? You know, well, it doesn't work that way. It's all about feeling. You can be a cat, a dog, a watermelon. It's all about the feeling. You can be any kind of human being you want to, but it's still about how you feel about anything, the other person, whatever. Flowers, trees. Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
How do I feel good about that? I think that's good. That was one of those magical photographs, you know, shape and form.
Oops.
I just
Sorry.
draped a piece of lace on the window behind her, and it made the pattern of the form come alive. That's what I thought. But it's a nude. Some people ask, what is it? It's a this, it's a that. Oh, I see a peace sign. There's all kind of things that people say about a photograph, and maybe you didn't even see that. But sometimes somebody can see something you didn't see that you thought you saw. It can also make you understand how that person sees life by what they say. That's another nude I like, called the lace nude. I got the form in the front and back by holding up a piece of black silk. That's how I got that form. Because everybody said, how you get that form? Well, it's a piece of black silk that she held in front of her. So you have a reflection of the form, and then you have the shape. Water. Again, water is one of those things that we are 75% water. And the first show that I had these in 1981, they were 40 by 60 inches. So you could actually feel them when you walked up to the photograph. Some people would come in and say, oh, it's water, and walk out. Other people would come in and sit down and look at it until, you know, there was a dialogue happening, the feeling. It's like water is like you go to the ocean. These nature things and all the stuff that we are killing, all is a natural connection to all human beings. We're all connected to nature. And water is one of those things will calm you down. You take a bath, you feel good. You go to the ocean, jump in the water, you feel good. You look at water long enough, you will feel good because the water will wash over this 75% water that you are. It's like a direct connection, like putting a plug into electric plug into the wall.
Oops.
Jazz. That's another form in shadows of lines. It's a figure, but you got to look at it to see it. You know? It's not evident right away. And I think the people in my latest book here called Adger, for a moment here. All the pages in this book are black because I wanted people to look at the work, you see, and feel it. And then when you turn the page, it works almost like a shutter, you see. You see the image, right? You see the image, but when you turn the page, I don't know if it's on this, it's black. So your mind works like a shutter. You see the image, and then it's black. You see, like when you go to sleep, as opposed to white pages, you see the picture, and you have an after image, because the black and white image plays against the white on the next page, but black is just like a shutter.
I just want to add a quick aside. One of the cool production facts and qualities about this particular book is that the pages are coated with Teflon. So as you are turning the pages and enjoying them, no fingerprints on the black. So I want to talk to you about jazz and what sounds and images shaped your feelings about the view and your view of the world.
Sarah Vaughan. And I was experimenting, this is before computers, of how could I get a image on the same frame. And so I did a lot of experimenting when I was in school with color and with black and white. And so this was at Newport Jazz Festival in 1961. So it's a conscious double exposure. I learned how to roll, how many turns to roll the film back so that it would be exactly lined up right.
Would you mind going into a little more detail than that? Because there are photographers in the room that don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean?
They have no clue.
Okay. In film photography, you're shooting on film. So you shoot a picture and then you advance it and the film advances. Well, what I did was when I advanced it all the way, this took a little bit of experimenting. How many turns back would I come to that same frame? So I experimented a lot with that, with color and black and white, and so I was able to get that perfect. So I like that shot. I did a lot of other double exposures. You know, I love photography. I am always experimenting, you know, with different things, because I think that, you know, well, that's just me, man. I love making pictures, photography, you know. Archie Shepp in his hands and his mouthpiece.
Oops, I'm sorry. I wanted to. This was after
that's
Sarah.
This is
Little Jimmy.
Little Jimmy
Scott.
Little Jimmy Scott was just one of the most greatest singers that I ever met. He was this very sweet guy and a little man, but with a beautiful voice. If you hear Nancy Wilson, you like Nancy Wilson? Where did she get her style? From Little Jimmy Scott. Our love will reign and we'll have everything. I mean, Nancy Wilson, she has that same kind of cadence in her music. And she admitted, I talked to her and I said, she's from Columbus, by the way. So she said, yeah, little Jimmy Scott was great.
I'm sorry, keep going.
My good friend Abby Lincoln. I did a lot of pictures with Abby. Abby was one of those women that she didn't play. She was, she didn't coddle you, Abby was straight away with it. She told you how she felt and what it was all about. But she was a very loving and kind person, really, actually. I really liked her a lot. I did a lot of work with her. Archie Seppin, his mouthpiece, we were shooting pictures of him, and he was talking, and he took his mouthpiece, and it was just, the love of the musicians' hands for the instruments that they play or that they handle, how they hold them, how they handle them. Very important. Very important. Tells you something about who he is. Sunrise.
Sunrise. Space is the place.
Space is the place. I went to St. Paul de Vence with Sun Ra back in the day, and it was great. It was just great. Sun Ra was a very interesting character, way ahead of his time. It's after the end of the world. Don't you know that yet? It's after the end of the world. I mean, his music, his whole thing, he had a certain point of view and I loved it. I love Sun Ra. This is a shot of Coltrane. It's actually in blue. And what I wanted to do was to show the spiritual part of Coltrane. So when I took the shot and then I flipped it, there was this big heart right there in the middle. You can see Coltrane on either side. If you look, you see Coltrane with the horn, but that blur and that thing, I did a lot of stuff with blur. But I felt that captured something, it just made that. I didn't make that. I mean, I made it when I flipped it, but I saw it. And that's what I was trying to express, something about that feeling of Coltrane. Now, this is not water. This is light. This is some of the newer stuff I'm doing. I'm trying to photograph structures in light because I find that structures of light have information, new information, actually, that we're not aware of. We deal with it every day, reflecting light off of stuff. But pure light, I'm experimenting with that. Oh boy. This is big fun. This is a reflective photograph. And I like reflections off of things, but I started structuring the reflections off of things by using colored glass and colored silk and cardboard, just a whole bunch of stuff, cloth, material, reflecting off of different things like tinfoil and mylar, all different types of things. I just found that those shapes and forms were organic and very natural. I don't know, they just experiment again with trying to do a photogram with cut pieces of plastic. Water again. If you have time, I'll tell you about my experience with water. Do you have time? I was in the process of being separated from my wife, and a friend of mine said, you need to go away and just relax. And so I went to my friend's house in New Jersey called the Black River. And every morning I would get up, I was doing the macrobiotic diet, and I would get up every morning and I would sit by the water and just look at it, I wasn't looking for anything. I just was looking at the water because it was running by and I had nothing else to do. And one day, while I was sitting there, a snake came across the water. Well, I freaked out. I was like, snake! But for that moment, I was in the meditative mood, so I just sat there, and that snake was just shaping his body to the waves as he was crossing. And when he got close to me, he saw me and he stopped. And his tail, he was sitting on the water just like this. And I thought, wow, how is he doing that? And then this light came out of his eye. Took me many days to remember what it was. Something went bap, bap, bap. And there was an exchange between me and the snake, and he crossed, walked right by me, rolled, and went up to the bank. He didn't say, he made that one stop, and the light came out, and I felt that he was checking out my feeling and stuff. And then he just crawled on right beside me. And that night when I went to sleep, I was like, I couldn't figure it out. So the next morning when I got up, I started photographing water, and I had a cathartic experience of seeing things in my life coming and going. And I thought, I can't tell people that. They say, boy, you are crazy. But I did see in the water all kinds of shapes and forms, and I saw my life coming and going. Well, for years I said, oh, I can't talk about it. And then Herman Hesse's book about the Buddha talks about the same thing. He talks about seeing reflections in the water related to his life. So I said, oh, that was cool. That did happen then. Because for a long time I said, it didn't happen. I imagined that. But that said it. So then I got really deep into photographing water. I photograph water a lot. And I find it to be very healing. It's healing. It's healing to your spirit as a human being. You know, nature is healing, but we don't think about it. We throw bottles in the water and plastic, and we do all this. We don't understand that all of this stuff is for you. The Creator made this, you know. Do you think that if you were the Creator and you were going to make a world with people, and you look down, you see them messing up, you'd be pissed off, wouldn't you? But if they're doing good and you say, look, I made that. Look at those people. They're doing, oh, well, I think the Creator feels the same way. If you're messing up, the Creator doesn't feel good. When you're doing right, then the Creator helps you. If you have something that you want to do that adds to the beauty of the universe, you will find that things will come to help you do that because you're doing something positive, not just for yourself, but for everybody. Then you find that those spirits, things will come into your life that you can't imagine because you change your point of view about things. Things will just come to you. People, money, all that. If you run after money, you'll never have it. It's like chasing, it's like if you fight against something, like you'll never win if you fight against something. You have to fight for something. When you fight for something, then things happen for you. But if you fight against something, it's like burning your wheels, you know. You don't go anywhere. So you have to fight for something rather than against. That whole thing against something is already a problem. You can't fight against, you have to fight for something. I don't know, what are you doing to me? Should I show some pictures?
Well, this is about Inside Out, and
okay, all right.
and you have such wonderful things to share. This is again.
Yeah, one of those abstract pictures is just
pieces.
the balance of the frame. It just worked. You don't know what it is, but it's nice to look at.
So let's talk a little bit about your Hollywood work, your more commercial work, and
Oh, Hollywood. That was a big
Hollyweird?
deal. Hollyweird. No, I think that some years ago somebody called me and said that it's coming to me.
somebody called you. And
Somebody called me and said, what's his name was making a picture, his first picture.
Gordon?
No.
Who?
No.
Oh. Who?
Main star.
Francis Ford Coppola.
What was the name of that movie? Mr. Tibbs.
Oh, Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier.
Sidney Poitier.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, while I'm 86, give me a break. You know? And anyway, he called, and somebody called me and said he was doing this picture and he wants to use a photographer. So I went to see him, and I brought my portfolio, and he looked at it, and he thought it was really nice work. You know, he didn't say anything. He was a very quiet guy. You know, he didn't say anything. He just looked at the pictures, and he got to a picture of.
Cool.
Go forward. Next one. He got to this picture of Diana Carroll. And he closed the portfolio and walked out the room. Didn't say, excuse me, Mr. Cowans, or thank you, nothing. He just walked out the room. And I was befuddled. I didn't know, what is, you know. So then Joel, his producer, came in and said, you know, Sidney was supposed to marry Diana Carroll when they were doing Paris Blues, that movie, and it didn't happen. He said, I guess he had some still feeling, you know, and I thought, yeah, because she's looking sexy. He looked at me. I said, oh, no, buddy boy. Anyway, his producer, Joel, came in, and he liked my work, and he said, I got a guy that's shooting a picture with Ozzie Davis, first black director, and I want you to go see him. And, you know, I was crazy, and I said, yeah, I heard that before. Right. Go see this guy, you know. I said, yeah. He said, no, sit down. And he called the guy on the phone. He said, I got this guy here. See him right now. I'm sending him over. And I went over, he looked at my work. He said, you're hired. I said, to do what? He said, to take pictures on the movie. He said, well, I didn't know what that was about. But I got into it, and it really was the kind of work that I like to do anyway, to catch people when they're not totally aware of what's going on, but just the whole action. So I worked, that was the first movie I worked on with Ozzie Davis. This is the director, Bill Duke. I just wanted that feeling by working on the set and the lights and all. She was a model at the time, I forget her name, but she was in the picture Puzzle of Downfall with Faye Dunaway, which is the next picture. This is Faye Dunaway, and a shot that I really liked of her. It was for the movie set, but I wanted the feeling of that scene and the feeling of her and what she was doing there, toying with her drink or whatever, and the black hat and all. I loved the shot. And this was at a break time when we were waiting to go to the next scene, and she was still sitting in the bar. Reflection of myself in a piece of broken glass. It was just the way I felt at the time, that I was a piece of broken glass. But you know, as an artist, you always feel stuff every day. Things change. You know, one day you feel great, next day you feel like shit, you know. But you go with it because as a human being, you have to continue. It's the same, if you want to do something, you have to do it. You can't talk about it. You can't say, I want to be this and I want to be that, and then you wait for it to happen. No, you have to commit yourself to it, not just for one day, you know. People go on diets and say, I've been dieting for a month and nothing changed. Well, because you're still eating bacon or chocolate or whatever, you know. But I think it's great. I've had a great time taking pictures, and I will continue to make images as long as I live. I told the creator, I called the creator, I called him on the phone. I said, God, I only want to be an artist in any lifetime. I don't want to be anything. I don't want to be a doctor, a lawyer, nothing. I just want to be an artist, because I think when you're an artist, spirit comes to you, it opens you up, and either you go with it or you don't. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's difficult, because nobody believes in you, but you can't wait for other people to believe in you. You have to know and believe in yourself that what you're doing is a positive thing, and then things work out for you. Money comes to you, everything happens. Because I think that the Creator wants you to express yourself with the things that the Creator has given you. Everyone in this room is creative. Whether you're a doctor or a cook or a carpenter, any job, you can be creative at when you think out of the box and you go with your heart.
Before we end this wonderful conversation, I just wanted to ask you to just share the spirit that was behind the setting up of Kamoinge, which is the oldest photography organization in the country, and it's the first African American collective, and their mission is to honor, document, and preserve the history and culture of the African diaspora with integrity and insight for humanity through the lens of Black photographers. And there's a certain, a lot of what you have been talking about has a lot to do with the things that you've been teaching as one of the founding members of Kamoinge, which is still an active collective. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because there are photographers here that are young in their careers and exploring the medium, and you've gone through many different rites of passage in your life, and I thought you might want to share some of those, some insight that would be of value.
Well, I think that if you want to be a photographer, you have to, first of all, commit yourself to it. You know, when we were coming along, we bought film and cameras before we paid the rent. It came first. You know, I ate a lot of sardines and crackers. You know, not steak, not sushi. You know. All those good things came later, but I think that you know when you're committed, when you put that before everything else, before family, children, money, anything. You're driven. There's something inside you that drives you to do whatever it is. You're a painter, writer, dancer, whatever it is. And if you have that, commit to it. Even though people say, well, you never won't make a living, you won't make money, you can't do this. You can. Your mind will give you what you ask for. It's not what you say, it's what you do. It's what you do, it's what you physically do. That's an energy that goes out in the world just like everything else. And it comes back to you once you do it enough. It comes back to you, you see. So you just have to be committed to that. And when we made Kamoinge, at that time, there were no schools that would educate African American artists. In fact, there were some schools that said in their information, we do not admit Negroes. I tell people, and they say, no, what are you talking about? Photography didn't become an art until Ansel Adams was on the cover of Time magazine. That was 1979. Ansel Adams was still taking pictures. They were all taking pictures back in the day, but photography was not considered an art until he sold Moonrise over Hernandez for $1,500. People went crazy. Who would pay $1,500 to photograph is what they said. But he made, then after that, everybody started all of a sudden, photography became special, limited editions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I lived through when photography was not considered an art. When I told my father I wanted to study photography and go to school, you know what he said? You gotta be crazy, because Kodak makes a camera, they send you the film, you take the picture and send it back. What are you talking about? I said, I'm talking about, you know, going to college to get a degree. Of course, I didn't know what I was doing. I was, you know, I wanted to get away from home and, you know, photograph girls. I was like, that's where I was at. It wasn't until I was a junior that I realized that this was important. You know, I was a kid. What did I know? But then when I committed to it, when I realized that this medium is a great opener in terms of relating to people, because they'll tell you what they feel. You know, people don't have no problem telling you, what do you think about this? Oh, I don't like it. They'll tell you right off before even looking at it. Or they'll look and say, oh, that's not bad. Or, oh, that reminds me of my mother. I hate that. Or they talk about their life. And I think it's just beautiful. But there are no groups like Kamoinge now. Well, we're still working, but the idea of coming together that was the only school that they had. Well, I was the only person who had a degree. So when I first went up, I taught everybody that was in the group, you know. I brought a light meter the first meeting. Said, hey, man, what's that? I said, it's a light meter. He said, what do you need a light meter for? I said, to read the amount of light in the area you're going to take a picture. And they thought about it. They said, yeah, but how much does it cost? I said, well, at that time it was like $40. Oh man, I don't have $40. We're talking about this, you know, the late 50s, early 60s. Nah, man, I can't. And most of those guys didn't have a camera. I had a Leica because my aunt bought it for me when I got out of school. That was $300 at that time. How much does a Leica cost now? Ridiculous amount of money. If you were starting in photography now, you could not afford a Leica. It's too much. But I was lucky, and I had a Leica, and I felt that that was one of the greatest cameras ever made. I still feel that way. The lenses are very sharp, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to commit to whatever it is that you want to do. And if you listen to your own spirit. Don't worry what's going on outside or what people think about. Just think about the little voice inside of you, because it's talking to you all the time, every day, all the time. Every day it's talking to you. You know when you do something good, you know when you do something bad. The little voice is always there inside you. You meet somebody and you don't like them, but they're rich, and you're buttering them up. You know, say, oh yeah, Mr. Son. Oh, you know you're lying. You know you're lying, and you feel it. You feel all those exchanges in your body, but you don't pay attention. You just gloss over them. People get sick, and they don't go to the hospital. Men are great for not going to the hospital. I feel all right, I'm a man. I'll do this. I'll do that. I ain't going to no doctor look at me. But you're a body, and your body's wasting and wearing away in time. And one day you'll be stardust. So make the best of the time that you have now. When do you talk about the past? In the now. When do you talk about the future? In the now. So what's most important? The past, the future, or now? That's all I got to say. But give me the mic. They would drop the mic. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions they'd like to direct to Adger?
You were talking about doing photographs of light. I've been seeing where people are playing, have like a flat surface, and they put like maybe buckshot or beams on top of sand, and they have a speaker underneath it, and the sand will take geometrical shapes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried to do maybe something similar as that?
No.
with light?
No. The light that I shoot is direct light reflected off of something. It comes through the window. There's no filters. There's no nothing. The only thing I do is reflect colors on the material. But I know that process about the sound. If you just take anything, any little shapes, and you put them on a piece of canvas, and you tap the canvas, boom, 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 like that, the shapes will move and they'll make a form. It's natural.
All right. And there's a question back here. Could you stand up
Hi.
so we could hear you, please? Thanks. Oh, hi, Gail.
I missed that.
You want her to share
Can you
his gift, his light, and his vision for young people? Whew, that's good.
For young people. Well, people that are young, they don't pay any attention. You can tell them, but they don't pay any attention. Oh yeah, well I work with kids and show them how to do stuff. Yes, but you can't tell young people anything. They think that, first off, if you're old, they don't pay any attention to you because they figure you're decrepit and it's old and you don't know what you're talking about. But life is life. It hasn't changed. It won't change, you see. But I think that working with children and you get them when they're young, that's a good time to get them because you're able to influence them because they're making up their mind about things at that time. And I think art is one of the things that, when they took music out of the schools, that's a terrible thing. When they changed art in the schools, it's a terrible thing. because children are pure in the sense that their relationship to things hasn't been colored yet. So I think that working with young people is important also.
So I'd like to conclude with a very, very, very quick story, since we're talking about Inside Out. And I want you to think about asking 3 friends to help you to go on a journey. And the first friend says, I can't. I'm homebound. The second friend says, I can go with you, but I can only go with you up to the city limits. And the third friend says, I can go with you wherever you go. I'm there. It's a metaphor for the first friend being all of your material possessions. They cannot travel with you wherever you go. The second friend that can only go up to the city limits is your family and your closest friends. They're there for you, but they can't continue the journey with you. You have to go forward on your own. And the third friend that travels with you wherever you go are your good deeds and intentions. They travel with you wherever you go. So be true to your feelings and walk with integrity and grace, and the world is yours.
That was great. That was good, yeah.
Sure. How do you want us?
You can move in closer together.